Good morning, everyone, and happy Mother's Day to all mothers here this morning. It is a joy to be celebrating another Mother's Day, and I trust and hope that all the mothers are enjoying today, and you will experience the happiness, the joy that Mother's Day has to offer. I trust and hope that your children are calling you blessed this morning. I trust and hope that the plans are to make you feel extremely special because you're all special mothers. So, again, let me say happy Mother's Day. For our sermon this morning, I'd like to turn the Bibles to Second Kings chapter 4. 2 Kings chapter 4, as we talk about a mother who fought against all odds to keep her sons from slavery. A mother who fought against all odds to keep her sons from slavery. So, the first 7 verses in 2 Kings chapter 4 reads, Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thine handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go borrow these vessels abroad, all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. Let's go to verse 5 now. So it continues. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. Wow. What a passage here as we consider the theme. Remember, the focus this morning is on a mother who fought against all odds to keep her sons from slavery. Do you ever feel trapped? Have you ever felt like you were at the end of your rope? What do you do when you reach that point? Well, we have at least 3 different kind of people in this world today in relation to how they would face their problems. We have the realists, and the realists would say, just tie a knot and hang on. Yeah, just tie a knot and hang on. But the pessimist would say, you might as well let go. It's only going to get worse. You ever heard that before? Brethren, it makes no sense to holding on so long, let go, because it wouldn't get better. It's only going to get worse. That's the pessimist. But when we move on to the optimist might say, just tie another knot and keep on climbing. Yes, my friend, tie another knot and keep on climbing. Now, each of those has its merits, but in reality, what can you do? Or what would you do? Mothers, I'm also speaking to you, as well as fathers and everyone else that is before me this morning. Some of us may be in that very place today. You may be at the end of your rope, and there is a long drop between or beneath you, and you do not know what to do. Yes, are you at that stage this morning? Are you at that place today where you believe you're at the end of your rope? Well, let's move on. There are a few questions that I am going to ask. You don't have to answer them for anybody to hear. You may try and answer them on your own. Questions like, what do you do when you are facing problems with your children that you cannot solve? Here's another one. What do you do when your marriage is on the rocks and the crashing waves of hopelessness are unrelenting? Yet there's another one. What do you do when there are problems at work and it seems that there is no way out? Another question. What do you do when you have too many days left in the month, but yet you run out of money? Your money has ended, you spent off all, but it's not even the middle of the month yet, and you still have other obligations to meet. What do you do? What do you do when you have followed a loved one's body to the graveyard and you cannot escape the loneliness, the grief, and the pain? Or what do you do when your heart is broken, your dreams are shattered, and your hopes have been dashed to bits on the cruel rocks of reality? Yes, your hopes, listen, your hopes have been dashed to beat on the cruel rocks of reality. What do you do when your heart, and I read that question already. So the final one is, what do you do when you are walking through a spiritual wasteland and there seems to be no way out? What do you do? Well, I don't think anyone but the Lord has the answers to all these questions. Yet, there may be some help in the verses we have read earlier today. This passage tells us about a poor widow woman who was at the end of her rope. In her pain and her poverty, she did the only thing that she knew she could do. What was that? Let's get to the outline of the message. My first point in this message today is running on empty. Do you know what it is to run on empty? If you are driving your motor vehicle and you're covering some distance, you have passed a fuel station about 15 miles behind, and the other one maybe about 20 miles ahead, but your tank immediately shows it's getting empty. It's empty. And it is said that generally a reserve tank, when you see it's an E and the light comes up, it's on reserve, and the reserve tank maybe can take you between 7 to 10 miles. But you know the next fuel station is about 15-20 miles away. What do? You're running on empty. Well, in verses 1 and 2 of this chapter, this widow woman, this mother, was running on empty. I'm talking here about her calamity, her difficulty, her hardship that she was facing at this time as a mother. What do you do? Well, this woman, as we have said, according to the theme, She did not give up fighting. She fought against all odds because she has had to keep her sons from going to slavery. Do you clean your plate? Yes. Yeah, that's a question. Do you clean your plate? At a restaurant, do you feel compelled to drink down the last drop of soda before you leave and get the last bit you paid for? Do you scrape out that last grain of rice that's left in your plate? How about cereal or soup? Do you tip up the bowl and drink down the last bit? That's so unethical. Whether your answer is yes or no, I guarantee you would if you were starving or literally dying of thirst. All those questions, right, that I asked there, many of us would if that's the last thing we have to eat or the last thing we have to drink. We are dying of hunger or of thirst. We'll be forced to do just that. Yeah, trust me. Well, let us go to this text and see what happened. We notice, according to the first two verses, a man died. Special man, servant of God, yes, and seemed like he was a very faithful servant of God. He remained committed up until his death, but it seemed like he had very little to go by, and whether he was given some money to be paid back or some goods or something, there was an outstanding loan to be repaid. So, many pastors or preachers do not have a lot to go by, and so have to get assistance. And sometimes the assistance does not come only in gift, but sometimes in a loan form. Yes. So apparently he has gotten some form of loan. So he now died. So what happened here? The wife was left penniless. So we have in the passage a penniless wife. She had no husband, he died. She had no money, no food, no income, and here it is, no government program to apply to. Did you hear that? No government program to apply to. She has had no prospects for employment or for improvement. Let me say it that way. No prospects for improvement. So it's like she has had nothing. All she had was two sons, and they were not income earners. Yeah, they were not breadwinners. And the serious position she found herself in this particular day is that the creditors were about to come and take them as slaves. And that was allowed in law, right? Although the Lord wanted, people who are rich to be more compassionate. And instead of taking, the male child or children or whoever in servitude, it was better that the loan be forgiven. But these guys had no heart. These creditors had no heart. They were at the door and ready to take the two sons to serve to be as servants or bondmen men for the loan. Hello. I think we may have overlooked one thing in the passage. She had one more thing, a little pot of oil, a little bottle of oil. But to her and to others, to us, even before we know about this story, it's like nothing. Nothing. Every other pot in the house was empty. Empty vessel, empty jar, empty cupboards. Yes, empty cupboards, if you want to say that way. Empty cupboards, empty pockets, empty purse. Have you ever Gone to that point in your life where everything is empty. You look in the barrel and you see the bottom, there's nothing there. You can't scrape anything, guys, finish. You open the cupboards and there's nothing, nothing. Flour finish, rice finish, meal, cereal, oil, everything finished, done. And there's nowhere you can run to, no one you can run to, or you at the time you're not thinking of anyone or anywhere you can go to get something. And sometimes because this put us in a spin of bother, we even forget that there is someone we can call upon, or somewhere we can go that we can get the necessary assistance. But I want you to notice this mother, This mother did not succumb to her difficulty, her calamity, or being running on empty. She was not focusing too much on that so that it blocks her memory that there was a man of God. Because sometimes as Christians, we forget that there's God, or there is even God's representative on earth that we could go to and say, listen, I have this problem. Let us talk about it. I'd like to advise on it. I'd like to pray with me about this. This mother was thinking right. I think this mother was wise. Right? I think this mother was up to the fight. And I don't think she thought of herself at this point that she's losing. No. Listen. She had one more thing, that little pot of oil. Although it sounds like nothing, it looks like nothing, and everything looked like emptiness. In her emptiness, in her nothingness, she went to the prophet Elisha. And she learned something about nothing. What did she learn? She learned what God can do with an empty vessel. Come on this morning, Christians. Come on this morning, mothers. Yeah, you may think that you're empty. Listen. God can do a lot with this empty vessel of ours. Yes. God, all we need to do is give God this empty vessel and the Lord will use it. He knows what to do with empty vessel. Do you want to prove God this morning? Yeah? Yes, you're running on empty. Mothers, you may come to church this morning, you feel empty, you feel like nobody regard you as a mother, you are not seen to be important, you have not getting any call yet from your children, or your husband hasn't said anything to you about being an important person. I like to say to you at this point, you are an important individual in society. If it weren't for you as a mother, our world would not be where it is, with the population and also with the kind of wisdom and the kind of responsibility that many of our children have taken on. You have instilled those good characters in them. So you are important as mothers. Yes? Because listen, between 70 to 90% of what the child learns at the beginning stage, as a matter of fact, almost 100% of what a child would learn at the initial stages right there in the home, and especially from mothers. So it's how important you are as a mother. Your role is as a mother, right? So you can tell yourself, thank God for who you are, for where He has placed you, and for the contribution you have made to this world. You are very important. But do you feel empty this morning? Or, by extension, anyone before me, whether you are a mother or a father or just a son, a daughter, or just an individual, do you feel empty this morning? Oh, empty, maybe emotional emptiness, educational, spiritual, mental, you're mentally drained. Do you feel empty this morning? Are you running on empty? Are you in some kind of difficulty, some kind of hardship, trouble? Avail yourself to the Lord. Contact the right person, who is God, and see what could happen. So she went to the man of God, verses 1, 2, and she spoke to the man of God. But when we go to verse 3, we notice something. I have this point. So the first point was running on empty. Running on empty. And this describes her calamity. It describes her difficulty. The second point is arresting bottles. Arresting bottles. I just use the word arresting. What I could say collecting bottles. I use that because I want to say something about being a bottle police. In Jamaica, when we see people collecting bottles, picking up bottles, we call them bottle police. So can you imagine this lady lived in Jamaica in those days? People bottle police, and laughing after her and teasing her, and people in Jamaica who would have found themselves in that position would be very embarrassed and maybe halt do what they're doing, stop, run, and hid themselves because they are very embarrassed. They don't like to be teased, right? So she became bottle police. She was putting bottles in handcuff or in bags or vessels, jar, whatever you want to call it. But if you notice her behavior in all of this, we're talking here about her confidence. By arresting the bottles, by collecting the bottles, we have seen her confidence, her faith, her obedience. Because what the man of God said to her really does not make sense, at this point, or to her. I don't know what sense it made, but because the man of God said that she was obedient in doing so. And we're going to see what happens when we are obedient. And here, mothers, this mother was an example of obedience, or when things look stupid or foolish. Let me use the word foolish. When it sounds foolish, right? She still was obedient to the instructions given to her. And notice what happened because of her obedience. But let's go to verse 3 first and see what happened here, right? What did the man of God say? Again, it seemed like the word emptiness is the key word in this passage, because I can't understand. In this story, we come upon so so much emptiness. It's a shame. Verse 3, it says, nevertheless, he cleaved. Wow, I gone to chapter 3. 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 3. Then he said, go borrow these vessels abroad, all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. Hello, this is no easy task, to go arrest so many bottles. The man said, go and borrow some bottles. Go and beg some bottles. Go and ask your neighbors for some bottles. Do you imagine if this lady did not live good in her community, what would have happened? Just imagine that. She was sent to go and to our neighbors in the community, not a limited amount, not a few, a whole lot of bottles. What sense is in that? I have a pot of oil in my house. I have so many empty bottles inside there already. Why am I going to pack up my house with more emptiness? It makes sense? It doesn't sound that way. But she was obedient, right? She was obedient. So notice in verse 3 that empty is the key word in the story. And notice that. The prophet did not tell her to go try and borrow food from neighbors, or try to beg food from neighbors, or to borrow money from neighbors, right? So he didn't say go get a loan from your neighbors. He said go and borrow as many empty bottles or jars as possible, as many as you can get. It was like the prophet Elisha was saying, lady, you have got a lot of emptiness in your life, but not enough emptiness yet. I'm going to add to your emptiness this morning. Whoa, boy. So gather together some more emptiness. Go back to your empty house after you gather all this emptiness. Go back to your empty house. Go back to your empty cupboards. Yes. Go back to your empty jars and close the door behind you and those two boys that are about to be emptied out of your house also. And I want you to see what God can do with all this emptiness. If you want to prove God as a child of God, right? Be obedient to Him. Be obedient to the Word. Be obedient to the faithful servant who may give you the advice, who is led by God. Right? And although the instructions may sound foolish, may not look as if or seem as if there's any sense in it, from the mere fact it's coming from God, do it, because you never know what will happen at the end. Faith, obedience, confidence, while arresting the bottles. The story continues in verse 5. She set out all those empty jars and vessels. That means she followed the instructions. She went, she got bottles. She got a lot of empty bottles, right? And she took her little jar of oil and poured it into one of the empty jars. It was filled to the full. And yet her little jar wasn't empty. Right? Then she took a second little jar and she poured out again. And it was full or filled to the full. A third one, a same thing happened. A fourth one, the same thing happened. A fifth. And many other empty bottles were taken and poured oil from this little jar, and they were filled to the full. Finally, she said, hand me another. And her son said, that's it. There is no more emptiness. Did you hear me? Come on. Glory to God. The son said, Mommy, no more emptiness. No more empty bottle. Are you with me this morning? Notice the kind of woman she was. In fighting, she had a team working with her 2 children. They were working with her. Her 2 children apparently went to pick up the bottles with her. Her 2 children came back and the door was locked upon them. And I think she may have put one to handle the empty bottles and one to put aside the bottles when they're filled with oil. And so it could be one on the right and one on the left. And so it happens that she asked the one on the left well, I don't know what hand she was stronger with, but whatever I'm using, the one on the left will pass the empty bottle to her, and she poured in from her little bottle, and then she gave the one on the right to put it down. And she continued like that. It was that motion for a while, until she turned to the one on the left and said, son, give me another bottle. And he said, Mommy, emptiness done, it's finished. No more bottle, no more empty bottle. And she looked across. They were uncountable there, a lot of bottles, and they filled with oil. First, the house was filled with emptiness. Now filled with oil, filled with a lot of fillings there, boy. And then she looked, the bottle in her hand, the oil stayed. You realize what happens here? You realize what happens here? Let's close the message with the third point. Conquering in the midst of crisis. Verses 6 and 7. Conquering. We're talking here about her conquest, her victory because of obedience, because of following instructions, because of toiling with her son, working together with her son. The mother who thank God she has some obedient sons, some sons who are ready to cooperate with her. And mothers can feel good when your children work alongside you, when you get the support from your children. You can say, oh, praise the Lord, hallelujah, thank you. Those are good children. These were good children because they assisted their mother in the time of crisis and they enjoyed the conquest with their mother. Yes, they were conquering. In a time of crisis, they have experienced conquest. Right here. Verses 6 and 7. Notice what happened when there was no more emptiness. In verse 6b said the oil stayed, which means the oil stopped flowing and the little bottle of oil was still there in existence. The primary interpretation is how God meets the material and financial needs of his people. He's never once failed. Never will he failed. No, because he's not a liar. Right? Whatever he said he is going to do, he'll do it. He'll keep his promise, and this is what happened here. God multiplies our limited resources, according to verses 6 and 7. Yes, he multiplies our limited resources from nothing to everything when God is in it. That's what it is. God keeps his promises. God stands ready to give us as we take the next step to believe. That's who God is. All we need to do is take the next step in believing what he says, and we will experience deliverance. Mothers, you are here this morning. You came in empty, or you're feeling depressed, down. What is going to happen next? Remember, give it to the Lord. Leave it with him, and expect your conquest, your victory in the midst of your crisis, in the midst of your dilemma or your calamity. Hello, the Lord is going to come through. As empty as it looks, there the Lord can use the emptiness to be a blessing. This mother fought with everything she had to keep her sons from slavery. When the bottles were filled, she went to the man of God and told the man of God. She may be wondering, what sense does it make up to even this point? I had one jar of oil, now I have many jars of oil. What am I going to drink? I can't drink it. I don't have meals. I don't have meal. I don't have like flour and cereal. What am I? The man of God said, oh, sell it. A business start right there. An industrious mother. Listen, a business started right there. He says, sell it when you make the money, pay your debt. Send away the creditors. Victory is yours. Right? Send away the creditors without your sons. Victory is yours because of God. You have won the victory. Mother, because of your faithfulness, because of your obedience, you became victorious. You're going to keep your sons. You're going to have no more debt. And you're going to have money to spend. So what you don't have in the home, you're going to now buy. So live off the rest. Yes. In conclusion, this mother knew where to go in the time of need, according to verse 1. Do you know where to go, mothers? Christians, do you know where to go in the time of need? Number 2, this mother found the answer to her need was right at home, according to verses 2 to 4. Yes, do you know that right now what you're wondering, pondering, or fretting about, what you think you don't have, you may have it right there in your home? Yeah. Even when you can't sit here, go to the Lord in faith and bow before him and talk with him. By the time you open your eyes or get up from off your knees, the Lord may just point out to you that the victory, the answer is right there in your house. Right there within you. And number 3, this mother found that the possibilities are unlimited when you allow God to use what you have, according to verses 4 to 7. Whatever you have is enough for God to use. It's all over scripture. You have a boy's lunch in St. John 6. You have Moses' rod in Exodus 4. And you have